Well, welcome to Brothers on a Budget Bike Edition. Today we're installing a new clutch in our GSXR1000. I've got the new clutch down here. Let's have a look at it. This is the MTC Gen 2 multi-stage lock-up clutch. We got instructions here, 2 pages. One of them really tuning and one installing. Anyway, we're going to do a video on it and hopefully helps out the guys like me who don't really know what they're doing. I had to wing it here. Anyway, we got the tuning kit we ordered with the clutch because we knew we'd need a bit of adjustment, so we ordered that with it. Comes with some weights or screws, 3 different size shims, and then an assortment of springs. This is the unit. We did order the core from MTC also, rather than send it over to the States and get it back. We just ordered one from them. We got a cover extension here also, just because the MTC clutch is a fraction larger than the standard clutch, so they also supply a housing extension which just allows you to use the standard cover still, although a quick access cover is probably pretty handy with a clutch like this. And a little pack of screws, a ball bearing. It doesn't really have the longer screws you need to go back to mount the cover through the housing extension. You do have to get a few longer screws. I think they were 60mm you needed. There's the thrust washer. So we replaced one of the washers that Suzuki supply of the standard clutch with the actual thrust washer. Anyway, we'll see that when we get to that stage. Just put all that back away for now. Put it over to the side, and let's start on removing the old clutch. So I've already removed the side fairing, just so we have a good view of it and access to the side of the clutch. I've lifted the tank just in case we need to get to anything from in there. But anyway, first things first, let's drain the oil. You can access the clutch without draining the oil. I didn't know whether we could or not yet, so I just drained the oil out to make sure the first time, but I have since adjusted the weights on the arms and things with the oil still in there. Then we're just going to remove the cover to the clutch, get a look at it. I have nipped these open already, but yeah, make it a bit quicker. I use the impact just to get them all out. There's a little pry lever at the top and the right hand side. It just allows you to loosen it and then just pop straight off. Here we go, we've got the clutch. Pretty good nick really for original clutch off this bike. It's now 15 years old and done, I don't know, 40,000 Ks. Seen a bit of use, but it looks nearly brand new. Loosen the springs off that hold the pressure plate on. Okay, then the pressure plate should just slide out. Well, the clutch plates don't look too bad really. As I said, after 40,000 Ks, that's no blackening. It hasn't done much drag racing yet at all, so that's probably why. Yeah, they look pretty good. There's a retaining spring, or like a spring washer. We don't need that with the new clutch. I'll put that aside, keep it with the old clutch. Now we remove the core and basket. There is a little notch inside the main retaining bolt on the input shaft. I tap that out a little bit to save the thread on the input shaft. And then the clutch basket should just wiggle out. Sorry, the core. The basket, you need to remove the bearing first in the center, and also make sure your crank's at the right spot. The weight for cylinder 4, or 1, depending which side you're looking at, gets in the way of the clutch basket. As you can see in there, the crank it's actually the cog on the back that it gets stuck on. So you just pop the cap off the crank and turn it to where you can slide the cog past the weight on the crank. There's the two clutches side by side. You can see the MTC one is a fraction higher. That's why we need the housing extension. But other than that, from the outside they do look fairly similar, apart from the top hat. The rest does look fairly similar. Okay, that's the ring drive for the oil pump. It is indented on one side slightly. That's the side that goes towards the clutch basket. So you can't really see it in the shot. You will notice it when you're looking at it for real, but I can't seem to get the camera to focus properly. Okay, we're going to install the basket and core. Firstly, we've got our washer. So you can see the bearing there, the main seal for the gearbox. We put the washer on, tapered side towards the gearbox, flush side towards the clutch. Next is the clutch basket. Remember to put the oil pump ring drive on the back, tapered, indented side towards the clutch, and flusher side towards the gearbox. That just sits in there. Then holding the two together, put the clutch basket into place. It won't really sit properly until we put the bearing in. So just pop the bearing in. Make sure the two cogs are seated. One for the flywheel, one for the oil drive. That they are sitting flush in position. Then where the standard clutch had the washer, we're going to place MTC's 4-piece washer, or bearing I should say. I have 2 flat washers either side and a thrush bearing in the middle and a center bush. Make sure they are all sitting flush in the right position. Then our core. We ordered our core from MTC rather than sending the standard one over. Just wiggles in there, pop that in. Make sure everything's flush. Then the standard washer and the bolt. Once the bolt's into place, I did tap it back out so it couldn't come loose. Next is our clutch plates. We've got 7 steel, 8 fibre plates. So we don't use all the plates that came in the standard clutch pack. We start with a fibre, then a steel, and building up until we've got the required number. The standard clutch has 1 fibre plate that is not aligned with the rest. That's the last plate. You can't really do that with the MTC plate system since there isn't the gap to put them at an offset position. Anyway, you want to align the little cutouts so that oil can freely flow through the clutch. You can see these are the original clutch plates. They have seen a few kilometres. They're not too bad. We're just using those now till we get the clutch set up, because we're probably going to have a lot of slippage, or maybe not, or we don't know what we're going to have at the start. So we probably are going to put a new clutch plates in once we've got it set up, and then maybe those new plates might need a bit more fine tuning also. Anyway, that'll be the next video. So we start with a fibre plate and we end with a fibre plate. Okay, that's all the plates in. The instructions have the correct thickness for all the clutch plates. It's, I think from memory, 1.525 inches. Anyway, they give you a way to measure that, which is we put the hat on for the pressure plate, and then we measure the difference between the clutch basket and the pressure plate. So we'll just do that now. So we just pop the pressure plate on. It just sits on like same as the clutch plates. Oh, don't forget the arm pusher. Otherwise the clutch isn't going to work. This model does need the ball bearing extension in there to make the arm push out a little further. Then we just pop on the pressure plate like that. So you want to measure between the indent between the pressure plate and the face of the clutch basket. The instructions have all the correct measurements for it. I've put them up there in the video. Just check they're right, and then we pop the hat on. We got 12 bolts to put in. These are little Allen key head bolts. Just be careful if you are using automatic tools on them. It is easy to strip the heads and put too much force on them, especially in the pits if you're trying to do a quick adjustment. Yeah, they're quite easy to do up too tight. So I wouldn't advise tensioning them with the automatic tools, impacts or anything like that. I would be tensioning them by hand now, just to make sure we're not putting too much pressure under them. Let's check they're all tight. We measure behind the arm down to the pressure plate just to make sure we have the correct depth there. So then we just make sure all our surfaces are clean so the gasket will sit flat, flush, no leaks. Just make sure none of the old silicone or gasket glue or anything goes inside the cover. It'll go all through your oil. Make sure everything's all clean and tidy, tight, all that sort of stuff. We are putting a little bit of sealant on here just to make sure that our gasket doesn't stick to one side at least, so we can remove it for adjustment. The retaining lugs, we've got to move one off the cover and put it onto the gearbox, like that, just so that the new housing extension will sit on there. And one last thing, do not forget to remove your static spring retaining screws. If you don't do that, the clutch won't work. You'll be pulling it all open again. I've done it, so just make sure you take those out before you put the cover on. 6 screws around the centre of the hat. So it is a good idea to turn the motor over by hand before you start it, just to make sure nothing's rubbing. You can remove this little cap here, 10mm Allen key, and it allows you to turn the motor over by hand. Everything seems good. fill it with oil. Trim the fairing to suit the new clutch housing. Just marking it up here with a bit of tape. A little trim and 2 washers under the 2 lower mounting screws. It seems to give you enough clearance. Double check everything before starting. Check you've tightened everything. Check with the manufacturer for all the torque settings of all the fastenings, and then give it a test. You probably will need adjustment. We did. As you can see here, we found out that we didn't have enough static pressure. So we put a bit more static pressure in there, went down the track. Unfortunately there wasn't enough static pressure yet, still slipping a lot, as you can see here, very slow launch. Then the arms kick in a little bit further out the track, they're pulling in good, a little wheelie, but the static pressure's still way too low.
Blue one, but the word's gone out. It's gone out, everyone's getting
That'll be episode 2, tuning and adjusting the clutch. Thanks for watching. Tune in for all our other videos and episode 2.